Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and this unhinged Democrat loses her mind all because Kristi Noem refuses to take any of her crap. Let's dive in.
One of the first topics I want to talk about is what President Trump said recently, homegrowns are next. And I'd like to enter into the record an NPR story. Homegrowns are next. Trump hopes to deport and jail U.S. citizens abroad. I was happy to hear your acknowledgement that that is not legal, but I am curious about the reconciliation bill and the appropriations requests that you will make. Will any of the funding, either through appropriations or through reconciliation, be used to execute this policy idea of Donald Trump's, which is deporting U.S. citizens abroad?
We have not deported any U.S. citizens, and so that false media narrative that you've heard out there just simply isn't true.
Well,
what I would say.
So my question, yes or no, will the reconciliation or appropriations be used for that?
The reconciliation dollars that we've asked for is $175 billion that will be focused and is reflected.
But yes or no, will it be used for those purposes which Donald Trump acknowledged?
We're going to continue to use the authorities and follow the Constitution to implement policies.
All right, reclaiming my time. I'd like to now focus on U.S. citizens who were deported. In fact, 3 children so far, likely more children. One of those children with cancer who was deported without the medication necessary to address that child's cancer. Again, a U.S. citizen. The lawyers have said that they were not given, the family was not given an opportunity to make plans for the kids. And so they were deported, essentially, again, U.S. citizens. I have a question about the forms that ICE is supposed to utilize when engaging with parents who have children, the parents who are being deported, and the U.S. citizen children. One of those forms is ICE Form 71-078, or the Caregiver Designation at Arrest form. Were any of the individuals who were deported, who had U.S. citizen children deported with them, were they given an opportunity to sign that form?
When these, the specific cases that you're referencing with these children, it was the parents' choice to take their children.
And did ICE
which it is the
follow
policy
through
of the
on the
Trump
policy?
administration to keep families together.
Ma'am, reclaiming my time. I told you at the top of this, ma'am, reclaiming my time. I said that the questions are really simple, yes or no. Was that form used in any of those cases?
I will get back to you on that specific form.
Perfect.
I don't know the number, but I do know these mothers were on the record.
The second form, ma'am, reclaiming my time. Ma'am, please, ma'am, reclaiming my time. I'd like you to avoid the filibuster so I can get to all my questions, please.
Answering your questions.
So the second ICE form that I'd like to ask you about is ICE Form 71-76, which is also it's pre-removal parental interests election form. Can you get back to me on that? Were all of the parents allowed to sign that? Are the parents allowed to speak to lawyers before they're deported, or to speak to their U.S. citizen spouses before they're deported?
They are given the opportunity.
Okay, so you can guarantee that every one of those parents.
We followed all the normal policies and procedures.
So they were allowed to talk to a lawyer.
Exactly,
that's a yes.
As it is authorized.
Is that a yes? That's a yes.
Everything was handled appropriately and correctly.
But did they all get to talk to a lawyer? Okay, reclaiming my time.
Under the policy.
Mr. Chairman, unfortunately, I'm out of time.
If this Democrat cared about reclaiming her dignity more than about reclaiming her time, maybe she might learn something, and maybe the American people would start respecting her as much as they should respect a congresswoman. But the American people have quite literally spoken in the last election, saying that maybe, just maybe, we need to start taking care of this illegal immigrant problem. And I don't mean take care of them as in using taxpayer and 501c3 dollars to put illegal immigrants up in fancy schmancy hotels. All right? How about some good old-fashioned deportation? And in this case, Veronica Escobar, this is the representative who's not quite off the rails, but definitely doesn't have it all together. She's trying to grill Kristi Noem over this idea that do these people have lawyers? Well, according to the Sixth Amendment, they don't need lawyers. There's no right to have them. They can use lawyers if they have the money, but that's really up to them. There is no reason for the government to appoint a lawyer for these people. And then there's the idea of, well, were all the forms properly signed? Again, this is the whole media narrative behind Abreu Garcia, who was deported to El Salvador, and a little bit too soon, according to one piece of paperwork documentation. Basically, a court needed to sign off on saying, hey, he can be deported back to El Salvador, even though that's legal murky waters, because El Salvador is no longer an unsafe country to visit. Oh, and by the way, that whole argument was about Guatemala, not El Salvador. He was deported to the correct country. The legal document basically stated that he should not be deported to Guatemala. In other words, a judge decided that, a lawsuit decided that a judge's order for the wrong country needed to hold up a president actually doing his job. This is insane. And so now the Democrats are grasping at straws wherever they can. There is a national story about a young child being reunited with his deported mother. I think the child's father is in El Salvador, and the mother is in another Central American country, and the mother wanted the child under her custody and her protection. And in these other instances that are directly brought up, that Kristi Noem is basically saying that, yes, these parents have requested these children come back with them. So we're complying, trying to keep families together, the moral and right thing to do, and the Democrats are clutching their pearls about it. They care more about the allegations of due process without even understanding what the law is. So if they cared about due process, they would know this. Immigrants facing deportation may hire an attorney, but they are not provided one if they can't afford it themselves. Although the Sixth Amendment guarantees counsel for the accused in all criminal prosecutions, these prosecutions do not apply to immigrants facing deportation, which are considered civil proceedings. In other words, what are they complaining about? The Democrats are hoping that the ideas of lawyers and due process are going to resonate with the American people, when the American people are going around and wondering, wait a minute, we can't afford lawyers. We can't afford these people. How is it that illegal immigrants are given these potential rights? So if you think about this for more than a couple of seconds, which Kristi Noem clearly has and Ms. Escobar apparently has not, the American people listening to this congressional proceeding is going to listen to this and just sort of dig into their ears and go, wait a minute, did I hear that right? You care more if people have lawyers when they're not legally required to have lawyers, and you're worried about forms when we're trying to do the right thing and reuniting families? I'm sorry, where is this a winning issue? It's not a winning issue for anyone other than a bunch of pearl-clutching rich white Democrats who think that they're doing the right thing. They earnestly believe themselves to be in a situation like, one of my favorite movies and books, In To Kill a Mockingbird, that Atticus Finch is defending a man who is wrongfully accused. Except in these cases, people aren't being wrongfully accused. So already the idea of justice, I'm sorry, they think it's up here. The reality is, justice is being properly upheld. Okay? And then they wonder, well, wait a minute, is full due process being given? Well, the reality is, you can expedite part of that process if indeed parents are wanting their children to be reunited with them. There is no current legal proceeding against that, and if there were even a modicum of that, you would already see a lawsuit. And that's not what the Democrats are claiming, or else they'd be waving that bloody shirt in front of you for as long as they possibly could. And so, the reality is, the Democrats are once again clutching at pearls. They're trying to put Kristi Noem between a rock and a hard place, and Kristi Noem is good at this position. She is a governor who has figured out how to be effective at her job, so she's already a good executive. That's why governors make such good members of your cabinet, because they're used to being an executive to begin with. That's why you typically don't want to give it to senators, although Marco Rubio's doing a fantastic job himself. That's also why Doug Burgum's doing a good job. He is a governor. And so you have Kristi Noem, who's used to this position, and she's great with the press. Long gone are the days of Republicans quaking in fear of going in front of the press and basically being made the subject of fun or being run rings around because Republicans have cared so long about the boring intricacies of which file goes where and acting like robots. Those days are gone. Now are the days of Kristi Noem, Scott Jennings, Donald Trump, of course, and the new media that's sweeping the nation. This is why C-SPAN is being brought to you and broadcasted on YouTube, and the reality is brought to you faster in a way that makes sense. CNN could only dream of this. But they could also only dream of trying to put Kristi Noem between a rock and a hard place because that's the only place where it's going to happen. Kristi Noem came with the receipts. This Democrat didn't want to accept any of the explanations. And now, if she reclaimed her time, well, maybe she would have a few extra seconds to realize that she's been had and no one is buying her product. Ms. Escobar, you might want to reconsider your tactics here because Kristi Noem came with the receipts and basically told the truth that you definitely did not want to hear. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Until then, y'all have a good one.